Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Automation for Horizon with the Horizon APIs 101. I'm not going to deep dive because 25 minutes will not work for that. Oh, okay. Now it's working. Well, my name is Wouter Kursten. I work for AnyLink in the Netherlands. I'm a vSphere EUC consultant doing everything VMware. I'm a vExpert for 4 years. I'm an EUC champion from VMware. You can find me on Twitter. You can email me, and I will send you the presentation afterwards if you need it. So I will share it. So Horizon APIs. There has been a PowerShell module snap-in since 4.5 that only ran on the connection server. So you could only do things on the connection server, and with some remoting you could work around it. And there have been some community trials using web APIs that VMware blocked afterwards. But especially since PowerCLI 6.5, the end of 2016, we had Horizon APIs. What was in there? 2 commands, connect and disconnect. That's about it, right? So we had to learn what those APIs did. So what did they do? Or actually, first you install a regular PowerCLI. These days it comes from the Microsoft Gallery, and it works. Just regular PowerCLI, that's all you need to use the APIs. It has been running since Horizon 7.02, but actually you can still use it against older versions. Lots of the APIs are available against 6 if you're still running that. PowerShell 5, there's no PowerShell core support yet. I don't know if it will be coming. But they are working on REST APIs now, so that's even better. So why do we want to automate Horizon? Well, one, until very recently, we only had the Java interface, and to say that that's nice, I don't think anyone likes that interface. It's slow. If you have multiple pods to do things against if you're in a cloud pod. So that wasn't nice. And you need to do things on a recurring basis. These days, you need to create a new image every month because of Microsoft updates, security, stuff like that. And this does not scale if you do it manually. If you have one pod with one vCenter, it might work. But if you have multiple pods all over the world, yeah, things will get messy if you have to do it manually. So we want to automate it. Well, how do we do it? First, install PowerCLI. That's the basic. And this includes all VMware modules. Some are not on there, but they will be available. You don't need to import the module. Just do connect HV server, and that will work. You might get a warning, you have got the PowerCLI settings to go for that. So, connecting. You do it using connect-HV server. Please store this as a variable. That will make life easier. I always call it HV server, $HV server, the variable, so we can do things against that. But how do we connect with it, right? You've got, if you do it only the entire, you've got the username, you got the domain, that's required. But you've got to add the password in plain text in there when connecting. That's not nice. Since last year, you can actually use a PS credential item. You store that somewhere in a file, whatever. It's a bit encrypted. At least it's not plain text. So you can use that. Include username and domain, because domain is required. You can have several domains. By the way, on Horizon 6, you could not, if you have a domain hidden in the connection server, you couldn't use that domain. If it's in Horizon 7, you can actually use for a management domain or whatever. You can use that by now. Let's connect. I'm storing it in a variable. Oh, first, let's create the PS credential item. Give in your password. We've got it stored. So now we create the new the PS credential item. All right. Okay, we've got it stored, and now we're going to connect. Very simple. You've got it all on there in the HV server variable. So we are connected. We can do something, right? Everything is in the extension data. Again, please store it as well in a variable, because typing that amount of text, that's not useful. So store it as well. And everything is in there. You've got services, you've got methods, you've got queries, you've got the whole 9 yards. Everything is available for there. You just need to be able to find it. Yes, store it again. For example, connection server health is one of the services that you can use. It gives you certificate information, we'll see that later. And if you want to explore what's available inside that, use get member. So it will show you what's in there. Let's see what's happened. First, the variable. These are all the services that are available. This is not all, there's way up there. There's over 50 that are available right now. Let's pick one, get member for the connection server health. So there's a couple things in here. The top two that are the most important ones, the get and the list. Others are some things you can do against them, but the top ones you use the most of the time. Over here you also already have the get one. You see there is, at the end you see still an object, but you can't see what object you need to have to use the get one. With the list, you see the brackets are empty after the list at the end of the rule. So you know I can use that one without any more information. Because what you're going to do, that's called a method. And you can do all kinds. You can get things, create things, list things, whatever's available. There's also an update function in there. I don't like that because you need a lot of data that's hard to get. There's better function, but that's really a deep dive if you go to change things. This is PS object heavy. And like I said, some methods do require an ID. For example, vCenter ID. This is not the same ID that you get from using PowerCLI against a vCenter. That is Horizon itself's ID for the vCenter. Once you have added that vCenter to Horizon, it has its own ID. So let's use that, the get. Like I said, if you only use the method without the brackets, it will give you the type of ID that you require. Most of the time you will get these by using a query. I will show a query later. So you know what to have. For list, you'll see it doesn't mention an object that you need, so you can actually run it. Let's run it. And it will show me the single vCenter at that time in my home lab. It will show you a lot of, it already gives you some information, right? The status is okay. The certificate held, if you've got a proper certificate in there. If I would go deeper, it would show it's not using a proper certificate in my lab. Version, very important, if you check things. You can always dive deeper into that if you need it for whatever. Again, you can again store this as a variable if you want to use it in the future for another command. Next, we go to actually do a query to find a kind of ID. So what do we need for a query? Well, what do we use it for? Because without queries, you would not have access to session information, pool information, all kinds of things. With session information, this is one of the only parts where you can actually see sessions from a remote pod when you're connected to one pod. So there is a global session query that sees all sessions in the entire cloud pod infrastructure. So that's the only thing that's shared over all the pods. Be aware that for the query entity type, this is case sensitive. PowerShell allows just about everything. Until you go there, things become case sensitive. If you make an error, use a capital instead of small, use lowercase instead of uppercase, things will break. You will get an error. And again, I will store the results that you get into a variable because you actually need, and you will see that in the next one. Here I've built the query for you. It's stored in the results, but once we retrieve the results, you don't have anything yet. You need the results object inside of the variable. So let's view that. But still, it gives me two somethings. So you need to dive deeper into that and actually retrieve the desktop summary data. If you have only one layer, you can also do select dash object expand property, so you will see everything. But sometimes you can go 3-4 levels deep. And that doesn't work anymore. At that point, this is more useful than using select-object expand property. So what is actually in there? All kinds of information about the pool. But right now, we have all pools in there. We can't see them at once. You might want to filter for a pool, for an object, or whatever. Let's define a filter. Again, you create a new object inside of the definition that we created earlier. Right? If you go back, I'm going back. Here, you've defined, this is the definition of what you're querying, and you add a filter to that at this point. So we've created it. We're not doing anything yet. If you do the results now, the results variable, you will still get the old stuff. We need to redo the query. Right now, we rerun it, and you actually see that's only one object in there. And this you can, for example, use to get pool information with a method from one of the other services that requires that ID, for example. Already has the information. Well, the APIs are great, but when VMware created the PowerCLI 6.5, they also created the VMware HV Helper module. After that, they dropped it into the community. I've added some stuff to it. It's not always the most useful, but for example, creating desktop pools, you can create a JSON file. You can pull a JSON file as well and edit it in plain text, have the snapshot in there, the data store, whatever you want in there. That's one of the few use cases that I still use the VMware HV Helper. For the rest, I prefer the raw APIs. It gets evolved, and it's useful if you want to do basic stuff. Get HV pool, get HV session, get HV global session, stuff like that. So where do you go for more information about the APIs? We've done some methods. We have done a method. We have done a query. You can do updates, but for that you need to create an update and apply that to it. That's for a deep dive. If you have more questions about that, come to me later and we'll try to work on that. So how do you get more information? One, that's the API Explorer on the VMware side, on the VMware code side actually. This gives you all services, all methods available, and every bit of information that's retrievable. It has some example code. Be aware there are some typos in there. I keep correcting them each and every time. So just don't copy past it because things might break at that. It doesn't break, but it won't work. You need to check for typos. But it's really usable. Normally, if there's a new PowerCLI version with new methods or stuff like that, a couple of weeks after that, the API Explorer will be updated. Also be aware that there is a version from which Horizon version it's supported for that method or query. Because some that are released now only work with 7.9 or 7.8 and not for 7.2. So you need to check. I'm trying to get this information, but I'm not getting an answer, but you're using 7.4 and it was released for 7.5 or 7.6. Plus be aware of that some methods might not be available for your version that you are running at that moment. If you want to contact me, again, Twitter's, but also the VMware Code Slack channel. I'm always on there. CRUD, the beard is on there. If you want to get a hold of me, that's one of the best places because there's also other people in there that use the APIs. And if you want to do a bit more on my own blog, I can recommend Back to Basics series. That goes a bit deeper than this session, but it gives you a lot of information, steps that you can do, example code that you can use. And actually, that's it for me. Thank you everyone for coming. And fill out the survey, please. If you have any questions, come to me.